Hello and welcome to part 2 of my SIC Kabuto Decade Edition review. I split it up into 2 parts in case you're just tuning in now because there's a lot of form changes and I didn't really feel like dragging it out into a 20-25 minute video. So, as we saw in part 1, I covered his normal form, his decade form, and then his final form ride. I popped him out of final form ride and left him half transformed just to show what you would have to do in order to get him into what I'm going to show you in this review, which is Hyper Kabuto and clocked up Hyper Kabuto. Hopefully I won't call him Kuuga as much as I did in my last review. So, first off, another accessory you get is his little Hyper Zector, which is cool, but, you know, doesn't do anything. Doesn't need to. So in order to get him ready for this, you would pop off the panels like I already did over here, and his back armor. Pop out his hands, which I already did. Then you just finish popping off his armor, and now you proceed to literally tear him to pieces once again. Not as bad as you had to do for the Hyper Zector, but almost. So you want to take off his chest plate, pop off his head, pop off his arms, and pop off the poor guy's foot. Next thing you want to do is you pop off the old armor piece for the bicep, and you're left with this little screw thing, or square, not screw. Then what you do is you pop on the hyper mode version, and they made it easy, thank God, because if it was difficult, it would be bad. Next, you take this and you pop on his new wrist gauntlet with his brand new shiny red hands. Ooh, fancy. Fancy for you, Kabuto. Yeah, I know. Want to do the same thing over here. Pop off the old arm piece. Pop on the new one. I don't like popping on the fist until I'm done. I don't like putting pressure on those joints. So then you get another fancy red hand. Now what you actually want to do next is he gets a brand new foot just to match his shell. You can pop that on, you don't have to put on anything underneath it. Then what I like to do is I like to put on the leg armor. Once again, these are a really nice red paint, and they just pop on in place of the old ones. If you want my opinion, which is part of the reason why you're watching this, I assume, I actually really prefer his hyper mode, hyper clock up, whatever mode. And you take his new ankle pieces. Now if they're not the right one, they won't go in properly. But they do have little, at least these do, they have little L's and R's on them, so they sync up. But, you know, it goes in pretty good. Then you take his new hyper chest piece, and you want to, there we go, didn't want to go. Try to be careful with these things. These are expensive toys to break, ladies and gentlemen. Depends on how bad you break them. My stronger, I managed to get that peg out in case you watched that review. I did actually manage to get his, is that in right? Yeah, it's in. I did manage to get the peg out of his hand so he can use other hands. He just can't use the one he had. That just pegs in the front. You're almost there. Then you take his new glorious clock up head, or hyper head. And the most integral part to all this is his little Hyper Zector pegs on there. So now we've got the much bigger, much beefier, I should say, in my opinion, more badass looking Hyper Kabuto. Comparison to the heads to show they actually did a good job and changed the eye color like they were supposed to, because the original's is much a deeper blue, the new one's is a nice pretty teal. Once again, he doesn't have a whole lot of differences from the show. You know, his legs here have more markings on them. both panels. This one is not as detailed as this one, which I think is a cool touch. These are plastic. These are die cast. They did a really nice. I love the red paint. I think on the paint they used on Kabuto, SIC Kabuto, is just great. His chest has that. It's actually like a translucent, like his eyes. Can't really see it. His back, you know, got little beetle things. All in all, I really dig it. I think it actually looks better. The chest and shoulders match up better than his normal version. One other thing I kind of forgot to touch on in part 1 is I love how, for all the lines in the suit, they actually gave it like a blue-purple wash. It's really hard to pick up. You can see it really good in person. But it actually really makes all the details stand out. And my favorite thing is he totally has the markings on his foot for his hyper kick. So, let's change him into hyper clock up. Once again, you're going to pop these off. It's not as bad as changing him from regular, obviously. Then he gets his cool, expanded, more powerful. These are just held on with friction, by the way, and I don't know how much I like it. I wish they would peg in a little better. Sometimes they just don't always like to stay where you put them. So there we go with, he's got that. Now my favorite parts are coming up. I really love how they did his chest. Now these panels pop off and then you put them on. I've said pop off a lot in this review. I apologize. So they come off and then you peg them on a higher peg. I'll take it off just to show you better. There's 2 pegs there. This is how you have it when you want it closed, and then you put it here for normal, for when you want it open, I should say. So then you can see the really cool, like, rib cagey detail underneath. And then on the back, these open up, and then those useless wings that came with his Final Form ride finally have a use. Now these wings are so much better than the Figure Arts version. They're big, insect-like, I mean they're gross, and I love them. These are on a really cool joint so they can actually pop out. Sorry about that, I had a phone call. As I was saying, I really like the wings. I think they're a little better than the Figure Arts version. So now, oh, we're missing one vital piece, and his last real accessory. The Hyper Zector. One complaint, it doesn't turn into a gun. Maybe with other versions of Kabuto it will. Now you have to use this hand with it, because the other hands don't hold it. They're like, as you can see, gun holding hands. Hyper Kabuto here comes with his basically red versions of all his normal hands. But I think they really did a great job with it. They, you know, silver fingertips, this, that, and the other. It also comes with calm hands, and then of course his pair of fists. He only has hands for his right arm, which I thought was slightly bizarre. I don't ever remember him wielding anything with the left arm. So here we have Hyper Kabuto in all of his Hyper Clock Up glory. This is my favorite way to display him. This is how he usually is on the shelf. The one thing I noticed is on his Hyper Zector, there's no place to put any of the other Zectors, like the Sword and the Zabi and... Man, I can't believe I forgot the other one. Drake, yeah, that guy. There's no place to put any of them on there, which makes me think either we're not getting those guys, or maybe it'll come packaged with some of the other ones. Dark Kabuto and Gattack came out in a 2-pack, and neither of them had parts for it. Dark Kabuto comes with parts for Masked Form, which you could theoretically put on Hyper Kabuto if you wanted to see Kabuto in Masked Form, but the colors aren't right. And Gattack came with parts to turn him into, of all the weird things, a Zek Trooper. So neither of them came with parts for him. This is also, besides him and Kuuga, the last Decade Edition release they've announced. Obviously, Double isn't a Decade Edition, and then they announced the second pack for Double, which is his other two forms, Lunar Trigger, Heat Metal, which I'm going to hope to be getting pretty soon. But this is I wonder if they're going to re-release all the old riders in Decade Editions, or what they're going to do, if this is just kind of a one-off thing, because these guys were on their plate. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope it was helpful to you. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, feel free to throw them down in the comment section, and I will field them as I can. Thank you guys. Take care.